Thanksgiving and welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast, Fantasy Football for the Average Joe. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. Frankie, happy Thanksgiving, brother. What's going on, man?
Deep fryer, knowing that you got 3 beautiful football games ready to come on, and then you have the following day off, and then we go right into college, and then right back into fantasy, baby. Best time of the year.
Oh, yeah. Do we have the Michigan-Ohio State game this weekend?
Sure.
Always so fun over Thanksgiving break to watch it with the family, root for the Buckeyes. Love it, man. Ready for Thanksgiving? Big plans? Hanging out with the fam?
Hanging out with the fam, going over to the in-laws, going to be doing my thing there. Shout out to Jesse. It's going to be a great time. And him and I kind of tackle that turkey, man. So it's going to be good. What about you, man? It looks like, hey, we have a new background in Johnny. Or
Where in the world is Johnny is the theme every week. I just got back from London last night, actually. And you could see from my face here.
Yeah, what the fuck is that? Is it a hickey?
Yeah. It's not a hickey. It'd be a weird place for a hickey. Suck on my eye, baby.
Hey, suck on my eyeball.
No, it's not a hickey. What I tell people is that I found an underground London fight club, but you all know the first rule, so I can't say anything else. The actual truth is not as cool. It's very embarrassing. I was able to find a place in London on Sunday to watch the NFL games. I had an entire pub to myself watching Red Zone. It was fantastic. Had a little too many beers at the pub, though. Got a little silly, and as I'm taking my pants off back in my hotel room, I got a little aggressive and hit my face on the closet door handle, and just sat there like Peter Griffin, just going, yeah, it hurt. I'm a big dumb animal. I know. Thanks,
folks. It looks good though. It looks like
it makes me look tough. Like I spent some time in London, played some rugby, fucked some guys up. Yeah.
There you go.
No, it's not the case, man. It's not the case. Thank you for joining and welcome to the show, everybody. I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving. We've got a great show for you today. Please don't forget to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at Frankly Fantasy Football, and on Twitter, at Frankly Fantasy F. Let's do some news, man.
The season 2,000 yards. Absolutely lost. Flip out.
News and notes.
All right, we're going to buzz through the news here. We got a big episode. Want to get everything in. We had some weird shit happen here, Frankie, this week. Really, really weird stuff. How about having a fantasy football team where you've got some guys that you have to plug in, you have to play because of bye weeks or just because you're in a deep league, and then all of a sudden in week 12, your players get cut? I mean, what in the even hell is going on? Darrell Henderson, running back for the Los Angeles Rams, cut by the Rams. See you later, buddy. Not on a team in week 12. That's not fun. So that backfield now consists of Cam Akers, who they don't like, and who's the rookie they've got there, Frankie?
Kyren Williams from Notre Dame.
Kyren Williams, yes. Interesting pick. Definitely pull him up, put him on your roster, see what happens. Not promising anything because, honestly, that backfield's been just terrible all year long, no matter who's been there. But Darrell Henderson is gone. Another guy cut. How about this, man? Melvin Gordon. They said, you know what, Melvin? We are sick and tired of you goddamn fumbling on the goal line. He fumbled on the goal line again. I think it's his 4th or 5th fumble on the goal line this year. They cut his ass. So what's the backfield look like here, Frankie? And who do you want to play in this backfield?
It's clear cut. It's Latavius Murray, which is absolutely absurd to even say that because he wasn't even a Bronco 4 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And so now, and with Chase Edmonds still banged up, Boone is on IR, and now Gordon gone. It is Latavius Murray's backfield.
Yeah. I mean, that's how fantasy football goes. You never know who you're going to end up having starting in your lineup come week 12, 13, when you're making that playoff push. You got to stay water, baby. You got to stay water. Sam Darnold, so long, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is named the Panthers starting QB this week. So long, Baker Mayfield. Baker's just been terrible. I mean, is that trade justified like you wouldn't believe or what? As far as fantasy implications, I don't think there's any. You don't want Sam Darnold. You really don't want anybody on this passing attack. Do you agree?
I do agree to a certain degree. And I say that, John, because I remember the connection that DJ Moore had with Sam Darnold. And that's the only guy that I'm clinging to hope on, because just calling a spade, PJ Walker, he's a good talent. He's just not the talent that's going to get anybody else involved at this type of level. Baker Mayfield might go down in history as a massive, massive bust all over. Definitely. And so when you look at Sam Darnold already having the synergy with DJ Moore, John, that's kind of interesting. But again, it's so fickle. I don't know if you can trust it.
No, you're not starting anybody else, but you're not dropping DJ Moore. Right. If you've got him, you may be forced to start him. I don't feel good about it, and I haven't felt good about it for a while. Okay, let's move on here. Matt Stafford in concussion protocol again. No bueno. This offense, you're not really starting Stafford anyway. It's really, really struggled. I think they have the 32nd offense in the league right now as far as fantasy stats go. Stafford is not going to be in. Neither is Wolford. The starting quarterback, God, I can't remember his name, but it's their third string quarterback. It really kind of destroys all of these options. If you've got Allen Robinson, I think you can throw him out as a desperation because there's going to be targets. They've got to go somewhere. But again, this Rams offense, really something you kind of want to stay away from if at all possible. I think Higbee could be a sneaky start just because of the tight end landscape. Why not throw him out there? Maybe he'll be a safety blanket for a third string quarterback. But otherwise, definitely look in other places. Chase Edmonds, not really a guy you needed, and he hasn't really done anything, but you can also just drop him at this point. He's got a high ankle sprain. He's going to miss time. You won't have him available for the rest of the season. Another scary one here that really weird news, and unless you've seen anything different than me, Frankie, please chime in. Justin Fields, he's, quote, day-to-day right now with a shoulder injury. As you saw in the end of the last game, he was carted off the field, didn't look good. Still doesn't look good, and I've seen reports all over the place. I mean, I've heard people say that he could play this week. I've heard people say that it could be season ending. So the reports coming from Ian Rappaport, coming from Adam Schefter, they're all kind of contradicting each other. So have you heard anything other than that, Frankie, that's a little more solid?
All I've heard is that he has been in a significant amount of pain the last few days, and it's looking more and more like AC joint issues, which for those of you who know shoulder injuries, that is extremely painful. So, John,
I don't know what didn't you, Frank?
I did, yeah. So I've actually had 2 shoulder reconstructions. One was a Bankart lesion, which is really exciting. It's where actually the tendon tears and rips, chips off from the bone. So now I had a piece of bone floating in there, and then a rotator cuff tear with a labrum tear. So yeah, it's very, very painful. And the thing that's interesting though, John, is that it's not to his throwing shoulder. And so he could go out there, but do you really want to risk that with a guy that's been showing so much promise? And so that's kind of what this is, in my opinion, John. I mean, technically, I think he can play. It's just the pain level is so insane, but there's been nothing concrete.
It's highly likely he's not your only quarterback. I mean, he really just kind of came on in these past 5 weeks or so. So you've probably got somebody else if you've got Justin Fields. Even if he's active, I'm not going to play him this week because all of his fantasy value, and the other reports I've heard is that they may limit him on the ground because of the shoulder. He's not going to run as much. And if Justin Fields isn't running over 100 yards and scoring a touchdown or 2 on the ground, I don't think he's really passed for more than 175 yards, So it's not a guy that just based on the arm, just based on the talent at receiver that you're going to want to throw out there anyway. So if you can weather Justin Fields for at least this week, I highly recommend doing so. All right, Kyle Pitts. You can take the frustration of having Kyle Pitts, and I think it's a sigh of relief for a lot of owners right now. He's likely out for the season. He's going to be done. Hasn't done much for you anyway. I got very lucky. I traded for Kyle Pitts, traded him low, got him the 2 weeks he scored a touchdown, then traded him immediately. I mean, these are the transactions you need to make. You got to find a guy that you think's going to hit, and then when he hits, you sell him off. And, it's just the ups and downs. You got to play the averages here. Here's another guy that's been super frustrating. I think it's also a sigh of relief. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. He has a high ankle sprain. He's done. They put him on IR. He's going to be gone for the rest of the fantasy season. Mike Williams, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers, came in. He came back from his injury, came into play, left the game very quickly with an ankle injury. Not good.
Not good.
I would not expect that you're going to see Mike Williams, and he's definitely not going to be 100%. Don't know how serious the ankle injury is, but again, we've got 3 weeks left in the regular season, so you need to make plans accordingly here. Kadarius Toney, wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs, left the game with a hamstring injury. This is a speed burner. This is a high flying, race car. When you've got a wheel that's broken here on a race car, you can't throw them out there. So be very cautious. Speed guys with hamstring injuries, you may not have him the rest of the season. You're definitely not going to have him for at least a week or two. So pay attention to that. Joe Mixon, running back for the Cincinnati Bengals, in concussion protocol. Now, the way we've seen these concussion protocols go, it's highly likely he misses this week, I think. It's possible he could play. You're going to have to watch things on Saturday before they play, but it's highly likely that he's going to miss at least this week with the new concussion protocol. So fire up Samaje Perine, who also scored 3 touchdowns last week. All right, last bit of news here. Zach Wilson, little fucking Mormon kid, benched for week 12, man. Really interesting. They're throwing out, what's his name?
Mike White,
the Whites. Although Mike White had some burst there. He had a little juice. He showed some promise in a couple of games he played last year. So it could be interesting.
John, this is interesting just in general, though. If you think about it.
It's scary. It's interesting, but it's scary, man.
Dude, Zach Wilson is 5-2 as a starter this year. 5-2. And I'm telling you, it was because his only 2 losses have been to the Patriots. Okay?
Wow.
Both times. But here's the kicker. He did not take any responsibility for how poor he played. 2.7 inches a play in the second half is what the Jets average.
Isn't that funny?
Think about what I'm 2.7.
It's like that.
It's like
right?
That.
Yeah. Of course, I don't know. Inches are not my forte. 2.5 inches? That's like this big, right?
Yeah. Right?
Oh, yeah.
It's
of course, I think 12 inches is this big. So, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you can throw Garrett Wilson out there. I think you can play possibly the running backs if you need to, but it makes me a little nervous to throw White out there when he hasn't played much for a while. All right, well, Frankie, with these guys that are hurt, these guys getting cut, you're in week 12. You've got to win here, man. I mean, you're struggling. We've got a 14-team league where there's nothing on the waiver wire. You've got your bench is just filled with backup running backs. I mean, it is difficult, man. And in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I just feel like in some of these leagues, I'm just wrestling with a goddamn turkey right now. That's what it feels like. That slippery ass turkey, man. It's really, really brutal. All right, let's get to Frankie and Johnny's Song of Ice and Fire. Today's Song of Ice and Fire is brought to you by CalSpra Employee Recruitment Services. Tired of staffing companies charging high hourly rates to recruit subpar employees for your business? CalSpra Employee Recruitment Services sets you up with a program that sustains a constant flow of new recruits coming to your door. How do they do it? It's simple. They had to. CalSpra has owned a manufacturing business since 1989, and when the employee crisis hit, they came up with a system with proven results. No hourly fees for your employees they bring to your business, just one flat fee to get you real results. For more information, call now at 330-584-7759. Use the promo phrase Frankie and Johnny and get a free consultation for your business. All right, on ice, my friend. This guy makes me sad. He's been on ice 2 weeks in a row, and I've got the stack, and it's bothering me. He needs to step it up here for these final games. I need him. AJ Brown, one of my man crushes. He's in my boy band. I've got a boy band with AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson,
and DK
Metcalf. Yeah, that's my boy band right there. AJ Brown, 5 catches, 7 targets, 60 yards, and a fumble. 5 points out of AJ Brown. It's not what you want out of him, man. All right, Frankie, this guy gets the titty bag shitfuck of the week award. Talk about the next guy on ice. He's frozen. Man.
Frozen solid. We're going up north here. We're going to Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. John, atrocious.
12
completions, on 23 passing attempts for only 105 yards. He fumbled and was sacked 7 times. Okay. What does that equate to in fantasy world? -5 points. Kirk Cousins, you are frozen solid. Frozen.
Kirk Cousins is the guy. He's sitting outside on Black Friday, freezing his goddamn ass. I mean, you've got Thanksgiving theme, you've got Game of Thrones theme. I mean, that one worked out perfectly.
Perfect.
You know? Yeah. All right, let's see who else is on ice here. You know what? Here's this guy. He's just been constantly on ice. And you know what? We keep going back to the well, thinking he's going to play well. Russell Wilson, 24 for 31, 247 yards, 3 sacks. I mean, it wasn't frozen solid, but it was just, he's just kind of, I don't know if Russell Wilson has a ceiling this year at all. 7 points. It's not what you want. It's not what you can do when you need a starting quarterback. All right, Frankie, this guy's one of your man crushes. Why don't you talk about him? I think defenses have figured out what's going on with Houston, huh?
Yeah. All you need to do is stack the box. That's literally all you need to do. Guys, this one hurts. Dameon Pierce, 10 rushes for 8 yards, guys. What does this equate to, John? This equates to 2 points. 2 whole points. Because I believe he had a reception in there as well. And this is just maddening. Actually, fun fact on this, John. Davis Mills is benched. They're rolling out Kyle Allen this week, starter quarterback for Houston. They're tanking. They're tanking. Yeah.
They've got a shit ton of draft picks. The Browns gave them a lot of stuff for Deshaun Watson. They're tanking. It's that time of year. It's the most wonderful time to tank. Oh, man. Dameon Pierce makes me nervous the rest of the season. You're going to have to watch that because they just running him out there and their negative game scripts. I'm very nervous. I love him as a player, but based on their schedule and what they've got going on, I think it's going to be tough sledding the rest of the season. All right, let's look at the lead guitarist for my boy band here, Justin Jefferson.
Man,
hurts my soul. But that whole team just got completely boat raced. What'd they lose? 40-3. So there was just zero output. Hard to even process. 3 catches on 5 targets, 33 yards, 4 points out of JJ. You hurt me, baby. You hurt me. Who else we got, Frankie?
Speaking of DJ Moore, we got DJ Moore frozen as hell in Carolina here, John. He had 3 catches on 5 targets for 24 yards. Guys, that's 3 points. This has been the constant thing that continues to happen with DJ Moore. He had a couple blowups. He is struggling to get in the double digits, John. DJ Moore, you continue to be on ice.
Yes, he does. And why don't you lead off our last guy here, who's arguably a top 3 pick probably in next year's fantasy draft. Definitely. But this week, he was on ice, man.
This week, he was shit. And we're talking, we wiped a lot, John. For those of you who listened last year, we're wiping right now. And I'm talking about Saquon Barkley. He rushed the ball 15 times, got a good workload, didn't perform very well for 22 yards. He also had 2 catches on 5 targets there for 13 yards. Guys, what does this equate to? I'm glad you asked. 4 points. 4 points. You suck. We wiped. I have you. I love you. You're on ice, Saquon.
You are. And you know what? All of these guys that we just listed, they hurt you, man. They were in a turkey coma last week, and they need to get their shit together. No, that's what I should say, is that I had a turkey coma, and that's how I hurt my face. I fell right into the cobbler, man, you know?
That would work. That would totally work. And for those of you who are listening, please watch this on YouTube because these videos are great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's get to fire. I'll lead us off with the number 1 fantasy player on the week, Tony Pollard, running back for the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? He had 80 yards rushing. He had 109 yards receiving on 6 catches, 2 receiving touchdowns, man. He had 36 points. I mean, wow. Welcome, Tony Pollard. That was with Zeke in the game, by the way.
Yeah.
Tony Pollard is just an every week starter for you. On fire. Who else we got, Frankie?
John, we're going to the jungle. And what I mean by that, I mean who day. We're going to Cincinnati with Joe Burrow coming back swinging, my man. He threw the ball 39 times, completed 24 of those for 355 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did throw 2 picks, but he absolutely shined, John. He ended up having 36 points. Joe Burrow doing Joe Burrow things, man. I
love those Siberian tiger white unis they have. I love that. It looks so freaking cool, man.
So cool.
All right, let's get to Zeus here. Zeus, this guy, I don't care that he's 33 years old and everybody's waiting for the drop off. He's been an absolute monster this year. And you know what? I don't care. I know we always say take running backs, receivers. Travis Kelce, you take him in the first round next year and you feel good about it. I don't care. There's nowhere in the first round I don't think that I would feel bad about taking. You feel like you want to take Travis Kelce number 1 overall, God, just do it. Because no other running backs are doing what he's doing. Travis Kelce, 6 catches, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns out of Travis Kelce. How many points here? 34 points out of Travis Kelce. All right. Frankie, tell me about this handsome son of a bitch next.
A handsome son of a bitch. John, real quick on Travis Kelce, guys. This is super interesting. He is, to your point, if you want to take him first overall, have at it. You know why? He's the first in tight end for fantasy points. He's the 8th overall. The 8th overall scorer in fantasy football.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. So, guys, going back to this, the handsome gentleman, by the way, just strikingly good looking. It is. He's gorgeous. Almost. It's ridiculous, honestly. It should be illegal. Jimmy G.
Jimmy Gorgeous. Jimmy Gorgeous.
Did you see when he was sitting there with, it was like Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, and all of a sudden they're at the Warriors game and the slew of cheerleaders walk by and, you know, like in Kyle Juszczyk. So, I mean, those guys aren't like, you know, ugly dudes in CMC, right? Like they're not ugly.
Yes,
none of them cared at all. None of the cheerleaders cared at all. They were all going Jimmy G. And I loved it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but you know why? The only reason they were looking, man, is because DK Metcalf wasn't there with his shirt off.
That's right.
It.
That's right.
It.
No kidding.
DK's there with his shirt off, just chiseled, beautiful. Godiva body. It's just amazing. They would even look twice at Jimmy G.
What if Jimmy G lifted up his shirt and it's just like skinny fat? Like, what if he's just like beautiful? Like he's like broad up top, but then it's just like skinny fat. He has a fupa.
He's
like,
got a dad bod. He takes his shirt off and it just looks like me. And it's like, oh, dude, what the hell?
It's like, Speaking of Jimmy G, guys, went off, absolutely on fire during the Mexico game, which was so fun to watch. Shout out to the Mexico City putting on one hell of a game. Guys, he threw the ball for 228 yards, 4 touchdowns, which equates to 33.4 points. So we round down there. 33 points for Jimmy G. Absolutely on fire and has been looking really, really good, John.
It was absolutely beautiful. Another quarterback. This guy's been on fire. I mean, this guy is just flaming. He's charbroiled. He's been on fire every goddamn week, it seems like, for the past 3-4 weeks. Patrick Mahomes, big game again. I mean, just showing quarterbacks how to be quarterback. 329 pass yards, 3 passing touchdowns. I mean, just absolutely beautiful job here. 23 yards rushing, even 32 points out of Patty Mahomes. All right, Frank. Hey, we got a stack. We got a stack going on here in Cleveland. What the hell? Read it off to us, baby.
Whoa. So we got Jacoby Brissett and Amari Cooper, guys. Jacoby Brissett threw the ball 41 times, completed 28 of those for 324 yards, and ended up having 3 touchdowns as well, and had 29 yards rushing. Really, really well done. And looking at Amari Cooper here, he balled the hell out too. John, Amari Cooper caught 8 of his 12 targets, 8 receptions on 12 targets, 113 yards and 2 tutties. They continue to be on fire. Let's bring it this week again, boys. Love that energy.
Yeah, we told you a couple weeks ago, trade for Amari Cooper, and he's showing exactly why. And he's also going to be getting... next week, he's getting Deshaun Watson back. So that'll be very interesting in what happens there. But congratulations if you were able to scoop up Amari Cooper on the cheap. All right, next guy on fire. We got Devontae Adams. Good to see him back here. 7 catches on 13 targets for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns. Picking up where he left off last year in Green Bay. Who else is next here, Frankie?
John, this guy I'm really high on for the rest of the year, especially with Mike Williams being out and continuously being injured. Guys, I'm talking about Joshua Palmer. He went absolutely nuts against the Chiefs. He exploded for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns on 8 receptions against the Chiefs, which equates to 29 fantasy points. guys, again, if you have the ability to trade for Josh Palmer now, do it. Absolutely do it. Because with Keenan Allen, he's back. Can you trust it? Not sure. Mike Williams, he's out, right? And Carter's not anywhere close to what Joshua Palmer is. So I love where he's sitting. I love him in this offense. I see him continuing to thrive in a playoff hopeful Chargers team.
All right, next on fire here, we got a guy, very shocking guy right here, but this is a guy you better be looking at on your waiver wire this week if he's available. Samaje Perine, running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's the backup to Joe Mixon, but he came in even when Joe was out on the field and had a great game still. 30 yards rushing. Okay, ho-hum. 52 yards receiving. He had 4 catches. That's it. But 3 of those catches were touchdowns, man. Big week out of Samaje Perine, 28 points. All right, who else we got, brother?
John, I'm going to round us out with Danny Dimes out of New York Giants. He had a really, really great game, John. He ended up passing the ball 44 times, completed 27 of those for 341 yards, and had a touchdown. But here's where Danny Dimes continues to excel. It's on the ground. What did Saquon call him? I can't remember. It was White Vic. Is that what it was? Something like that. And I loved it. That's hilarious.
White Vic. I love it.
And so, guys, he ended up rushing the ball for 50 yards and another score as well. So Danny Dimes putting up 28 fantasy points was on fire.
That's beautiful. You know, when you have these guys on your team, Frankie, it's Thanksgiving. You want to go out. You want to play a casual football game. But you know what? You've got guys on fire. So you come out just going crazy. I feel like that's your family on Thanksgiving. You know, hey, you guys want to go out and just play a little casual game? And then you guys come out just going like your dad. You see him get down in a 3-point stance. I'm getting the hell out of there, man.
You run.
Oh, you're running like it's the Bulls in Pamplona, man. Getting the hell out of there. Running with the Bulls. Running with the Franks. I think that's what we're going to call it.
That's good.
All right, man. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to mix things up a little bit. We've got 3 games on. I haven't even told you about this, so this is all a total surprise. Yeah. We've got 3 games happening on Thanksgiving. It's happening tomorrow. Let's go into a little bit of these games and see who we're going to start. We're all going to be laying around with our family, just tired from the turkey coma, passed out, having some beers, and everybody watching these games together. So let's talk about them here. We've got the first early game coming up, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. Buffalo Bills at the Detroit Lions. There's some fantasy options here, man. Let's break this down a little bit. With the Bills, obviously, we're going to see Josh Allen a little healthier. I think he was still been banged up. I think he's getting healthier. But you're obviously firing up Josh Allen. You're obviously firing up Stephon Diggs. Who else do you like on this Bills team against this Lions defense?
John, I love Gabe Davis this week. This is a week to where that second receiver should go bonkers, especially with a lot of that, a lot of the focus being on Stephon Diggs. And so I really think Gabe Davis could be very, very interesting this week. John, another guy, I like Dawson Knox. If you have him as a tight end, I would absolutely look. He's a very good streaming option this week. Again, Detroit has struggled against opposing tight ends. And lastly, John, this is kind of interesting, but I love Devin Singletary. And what he has shown is he really has run away with that lead back role now that Zach Moss is no longer there. You do have James Cook, who actually did flash pretty well. But it was against a very, very bad Browns running D. And so I think Devin Singletary could be very, very fascinating this week, especially if they get up to a quick lead.
I agree. It's indoors. It's in Detroit, in the Dome. It's just a very good recipe for Devin Singletary this week. If you're desperate, deep league, you've had some, injuries, maybe your 2 running backs got cut, I think you could throw James Cook out there. I just really would temper your expectations on that. But he could get a little more play as we go through. They're going to want to keep Singletary healthy, getting ready for the playoffs here as well. All right, let's move on to the Lions here. Who do we like on the Lions? Jared Goff had a rough week last week. We had some guys that had, some challenges last week on the Lions. So what are you thinking this week against this Bills defense?
John, you got to fire up. What we saw is you got to fire up Amon-Ra St. Brown. And what I mean by that is what we saw Jacoby Brissett and Amari Cooper do to the Bills, I think could be very comparable to that of what Jared Goff could do with that of Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I do like that. Here's where it gets interesting. Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift. What do you do with those guys? Is this Because I look at it in two ways, John, and I'm serious when I say this. I look at it as, okay, Jamal Williams has been fan-fucking-tastic all year long. All year long, okay? This is a really poor matchup for what he's been able to do all year long. Vice versa is DeAndre Swift. This is a golden matchup for what he does day in and day out. He finally had full practice this week, finally is off the injury report, all this shit. The problem is we haven't seen it this year since week 1 and week 2. So my question is, John, to you, would you start both? Do you choose one over the other? What is your thought on that? Because I'm running into this right now with, do I fire Swift up? Do I not? And I'm sure other people are as well.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Jamal Williams, you have to play him. It's a terrible matchup. I mean, he's probably going to be an RB3 this week, maybe an RB2 if he can fall into the end zone. But you've got to fire him up. He had 17, touches last week. He's not involved in the passing game at all. It's been 4 or 5 weeks since he's even had a target in the passing game. So he's really been non-existent there. That's what kind of scares me about the game with him here. I think it's very scary. I think if you've got him at this point, you've got to put him in. Maybe at a flex would be a little more comfortable. DeAndre Swift, he's interesting. I mean, he only had 5 rushes. He's not running the ball, and they're not going to give him very many opportunities on the ground against the Bills. But passing game work could be interesting, but it's tough. I'm looking for other options. If you've got Swift at this point in the season with injuries and everything, it's tough to sit him on your bench. If you're in a smaller league, 10, 12 guys, I wouldn't put him out there at all. But if you're in a 12-man league, a 14-team league, you might need to. But I don't expect big things out of Swift or Jamal Williams this week for that matter. All right, what about the receivers here? I mean, you got to fire Amon-Ra St. Brown up, correct? He's got to be fired up. Something interesting to look at, Jameson Williams is coming back. We haven't seen him at all this year. He's been on IR and been on the PUP. But the rookie, they drafted him, very highly drafted or highly rated rookie coming in. Could be interesting. He needs to be rostered. I've had him on my IR pretty much all season. He may play this week. Now, definitely do not start him. We don't know how much he's going to play. Guy's a rookie. He's never played in the NFL, and it's week 12. But be ready to look at him. He could be kind of fun here for the last couple of games for you, or even into the playoffs, a la Amon-Ra St. Brown last year. All right, let's get to the afternoon game. We've got the 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The Giants, New York Football Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. All right, we've got some good defenses playing on Thanksgiving here this week, man. Talk about the Giants. Big-time struggles last week other than Daniel Jones, but they struggled. Saquon struggled. Didn't really see a whole lot through the passing game. Can Daniel Jones do it on his own this week on the ground? Can he be White Vic?
No, not against this defense. No.
The short answer is no, not against the Cowboys.
I mean, you look at what the Cowboys just did to a 8-1 Minnesota Vikings, right? An 8-1 at home. Minnesota was at home, and the Dallas Cowboys just came in and waxed them. And it was definitely driven by that defense. I mean, Micah Parsons is a scary, scary dude on that edge. I mean, it is incredible what he's able to do. Then you have Leighton Vander Esch, and then you have Trevion Diggs, who's been balling out. It's a really tough matchup, John. So for me, I would not fire up Danny Dimes this week. You got to fire up Saquon because you have to. And other than that, man, I'm really struggling if there's anybody else. Maybe a Darius Slayton if you need a flex.
I was going to say if you're desperate, you need somebody out there and a flex player. Slayton would be the one guy I'd put out there, and you got to hope for a big play. There's not going to be a ton of volume, I don't think, out of them. But yeah, it's rough sledding. I think you really kind of bench everybody on the Giants other than Saquon and just hope for the best. He could very well have a game like he did last week. He's going to be involved on the ground and in the passing game. I don't expect a lot. This Cowboys defense is freaking legit. What about the Cowboys? Let's talk about these guys. Who do you like on this team right now, this week?
John, I love just about every single one. And I mean, guys, I love CeeDee Lamb. He's going to have another bounce back week. Dak, that's Dak's guy. He's going to find him this week. I really believe that. I really like both running backs, Zeke and or Pollard. And I say that because Zeke is still banged up. He's still listed as questionable heading into this Thanksgiving game. But it was interesting because with Zeke on the field, it was almost like it gave Pollard the ability to completely flourish. And it's weird to say that because you would think opposite, right? You would think that Pollard without Zeke would get the full workload. But you mentioned something last week that was so critical, John. And it was Pollard can't handle that type of workload. Yeah. And that's just the reality of the situation. Zeke is built to be that heavy runner in between traffic. Pollard is this guy that's, I'm just going to say it, he's Austin Eckler-ish. And the way he's able to take that ball from a receiving aspect and turn it into something incredible, his hands along the sidelines, he's a matchup nightmare to linebackers. And so it's very, very much so this thunder and lightning approach. I look at it as when it was Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler, when they were all in the Chargers. So, yeah. John, this is really interesting to me. If I'm a betting man, which I am, I would absolutely, and Zeke is playing, I'm firing up Zeke, I'm firing up Pollard, firing up CeeDee Lamb, and I love Dalton Schultz this week. I think this is a nice week, a very high floor for him. 7-point floor could be really, really solid.
I think Dalton Schultz scores this week. I think that's going to be Johnny's lock of the week, a Dalton Schultz touchdown. All right, let's move on. The night game we've got here. We need some redemption out of some of these Vikings. We've got the Patriots, New England Patriots, traveling to Minnesota in the frozen tundra, the Minnesota Vikings, 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, let's talk about the Patriots. Difficult team to really analyze, not a ton of fantasy output. It's kind of play good defense, run the ball, and just try to have the most boring game absolutely possible and pull off a win. Yeah. I think they try to just bore the other team into submission. For the most part. All right, so Patriots. Who are we starting on the Patriots side?
Ramondre Stevenson, you're firing him up. Even though from a rushing perspective, he didn't look super great, his receiving work is what's keeping him afloat. And he's a very, very critical part of this offense. So you got to fire up Ramondre Stevenson. John, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to start this guy. I'm going to start Jakobi Meyers. And I'm going to start Jakobi Meyers because he has been fascinating at the amount of targets that he's been able to get the last few weeks. We're looking at 12 targets over the last 2 weeks here, and it's only going to get better. And what I'm thinking is, John, even though the Pats have a great defense, I think Minnesota is going to bounce back. After a 40-3 loss like what they had against Dallas, that leaves a really gross taste in your mouth. And now, you have the Pats coming to you. It's Thanksgiving. You're on prime time. It's the 8:00 game. I really see Kirk Cousins turning it on with Justin Jefferson, et cetera. And so for me, I look at, when I'm so bringing it full circle with Jakobi Meyers, they're going to need to throw the ball. They have to throw the ball to keep up with this Minnesota team. And so for me, man, I really do like Ramondre Stevenson, and I'm going to take a risk on flying out Jakobi Meyers this week.
Okay, I think that about sums up the Patriots there. All right, what about the Vikings here? Are we just hoping for a comeback week and just basically playing everyone?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think you can fire up Kirk Cousins. I think you can fire up. Now, Kirk Cousins, mind you, that's a stream. Let me be very, very crystal clear. That to me would be a stream. The Patriots defense is number one in fantasy right now. They're very good at what they've been able to do. It's going to be tough sledding. But for whatever reason, man, Kirk Cousins shines in primetime games and looks like dog shit at 1:00 games. And I know that sounds weird, but it really has been what it has been. And so for me, I like Kirk Cousins as a potential stream. I love JJ. You got to fire him up always. And Dalvin Cook always. And I think there is validity to looking at Adam Thielen. I think that, and Hawkinson, I think you fire both of those guys up. Thielen's going to need to be in a deeper league, guys. You're not going to end up starting him in an 8-10 man league by any means. But if you're in a deep league with buys and injuries and all this other shit going on, I think you can definitely look to fire up Adam Thielen in a flex.
This could be the week because I think, how Bill Belichick goes. He's going to try to stop, your best player on your team. They're going to do everything they can to stop JJ. I think he's going to get enough targets that he'll still have a nice game. But I think that's going to leave a very vulnerable spot with Adam Thielen in the end zone, in the red zone. So I think it's very possible Adam Thielen gets into the end zone this week with that secondary coverage.
So, John, question for you real quick.
Yeah.
Would you rather start Jakobi Meyers or Adam Thielen?
I would rather start Jakobi Meyers. I think Thielen has the best option and possibility for a touchdown. but I think the volume is going to go to Jacoby Myers, especially in a PPR or half PPR.
What about Dawson Knox or Dalton Schultz?
Ooh. That's a real tough one. I mean, you were talking about who do you think might fall into the end zone at tight end? I mean, we're still talking, 4 catches probably at best for each of these guys. I think it's real close. They've got to be back-to-back in rankings here. I'm probably going to go with Dalton Schultz here.
Okay. And then I got one more for you that's really interesting. Devin Singletary or Pollard/Zeke.
Zeke's getting the goal line work. He's not getting the total volume. So I would start. Who did you say the first guy was?
Devin Singletary.
I'm starting Singletary over Zeke just because of sheer volume and a better matchup. But I'm starting Pollard over both of them. I mean,
good.
The data shows, and the guy can bust off a 50-yard touchdown. Zeke's more of the red zone goal line guy. So, give me the guy with the highest upside. I think that's going to be Tony Pollard. Yeah. All right, man. Let's get to the waiver wire here. Okay, I know you've put together some guys for us. We've got people panicking, whatever fab money they have left, whatever pennies that they can throw out there and try to get. Who do we need to get this week to help us start, to help us win?
Definitely, John. So, guys, there's a few here. I'm going to list them fairly quickly because it's pretty self-explanatory this week. Guys, first and foremost, Samaje Perine. Pick his ass up. If you have the ability to, especially with the concussion protocols that are happening, that are a lot more extensive than what they were, Samaje Perine is going to be a nightmare matchup out of the backfield in terms of the receiving work. You might not see a lot from the rushing side, but again, his receiving is incredible. It's handcuff season with him all damn day. John, number 2, I'm going to go with Latavius Murray, guys. I found it very interesting that 75% of rosters, he's not even on. And so, guys, you need to pick this man up. I mean, he has performed well enough to be rostered. So, guys, with Gordon gone, Edmonds hurt, Boone on IR. I mean, what we saw with Latavius last week, he had 17 rushes, 49 yards, a touchdown. He also had 4 receptions and 23 yards. Guys, that's 15 points. That's nice. That's really nice. So for me, you got to pick this guy up and spend heavy on him. Feel comfortable spending heavy on Latavius Murray.
Yeah, he's going to have the volume. I mean, you could spend on him because the volume's there.
Yeah. John, number 3 for me is going to be Paris Campbell. We were banging the table a bit earlier on a few weeks ago, and I want to come back to this because I don't think this is going away anytime soon now that Jeff Saturday has taken over, reinstated Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's looking really good, almost re-energized. And now we might see a completely different feel in the next few weeks. I mean, they almost beat the Eagles last week. And so Paris Campbell, guys, he's had 38 targets and 29 catches, 270 yards, and 3 touchdowns, all in the last 4 games with Matt Ryan at the helm. And so, even last week, he had 5 catches on 6 targets for 67 yards, which is 9 points. Guys, this man needs to be rostered. Please feel comfortable in picking him up and rostering him because right now, he's not that far behind Michael Pittman Jr. as that go-to guy. Number 4, I'm going to go with the tight end here, guys. I'm going to go with Juwan Johnson. This is fascinating. He's with the New Orleans Saints. Guys, he has run the 9th most routes among tight ends this entire season. On top of that, he has 5 touchdowns over the last 5 weeks. So that's 1 touchdown a week. Guys, you need to be rostering him and potentially starting Juwan Johnson. And lastly, I'm going to say it, Cam Akers. I can't believe I'm fucking saying Cam Akers. Cam Akers, guys, this Rams offense is awful. It's all over the place. Nobody knows what's happening. All I know is that you might strike luck. You might strike gold, right? And so with Henderson now gone, you got Cam Akers taking over the potential lead. And I say potential because Kyren Williams looked good. So who knows what's going to happen there? But Cam Akers is absolutely worth a stash at this point in time. So, John, those would be my 5 pickups this week.
All right. I love it. You got to look at these guys, Frankie. You've got these teams that have their rosters and their main guys they drafted and they hold on to them. And they're like, my team's amazing. And then I want to be the guy at the end of the year who's making these pickups, who's picking up guys that the other teams have never even heard of. And they start, it's kind of like that somebody making their beautiful turkey, the foodie. I could see you doing this. And then I show up with some fucking lunch meat and I love it, man. I mean, it's like it's having, Josh Palmer, winning your leagues with Josh Palmer and Samaje Perine and Daniel Jones, and picking these guys up. And you've got the lunch meat and you're like, oh my God, it's so moist. It's almost wet. All right, man, let's get to, it's time. Ooh, it is time. It's time to hit it and quit it, baby.
I want you to hit it. Hit it and quit it. I want you to.
Indeed. All right, hey, we did pretty well last week, man. I mean, a lot of our call-outs here, the hit-its and quit-its, as well as the flex appeals, we did pretty well. So last week, our hit-its were Ramondre Stevenson with 11 points, Cortland Sutton with 10 points, Frankie, you had Amon-Ra St. Brown with 11 points, and Jamal Williams for 24 points. It's a really nice work last week. Who do you have this week, Frankie? Who are you hitting, baby?
John, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm hitting Geno Smith versus that of Vegas. Guys, this is a risk, no doubt, but here's why. Geno Smith is the number 7 overall fantasy quarterback. You heard that right. Number 7. Okay, he's playing against a Raiders defense that is also ranked 31st worst defense for fantasy in the NFL. They're coming off a bye week. They've had a lot of time to prepare. This is absolutely the time to where if you're firing up Geno Smith, this is the matchup. This is the game. They're at home. It's going to be loud. It's going to be rowdy. By the way, they're also fighting to stay atop that division. So for me, I'm hitting Geno Smith.
Beautiful, man. I love that. All right. I'm going to go with a little risk here, man. James Conner. He's my hit it this week. Now, hear me out, okay? I traded for James Conner, and I wanted him for a specific reason. I got him from you. Isn't that correct, Frankie?
Correct.
Yeah. I was looking ahead, and I was looking at weeks like we just had where he scored. Listen, James Conner's coming on. He hasn't been healthy all year, but he's finally healthy. The past couple of weeks, he's got 3 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks, so he's getting into the end zone. 14 attempts last week, 21 attempts the week before. He's getting work out of the backfield as well. He's getting targets. He's had more than 5 targets 2 out of the past 3 weeks. So I think he's getting involved here. He was the running back 14 last week, the running back 5 the week before. They're playing the Chargers, who have been absolutely atrocious on the ground as far as their rushing defense. So I think James Conner is absolutely going to get some play this week. Fire him up. Feel good about it. All right, Frankie, who you got next, baby? Who you hitting?
John, I'm hitting Jeffrey Wilson. Who's that? Well, I'm glad you asked. That is the running back for the Miami Dolphins, who they traded for from San Francisco. Guys, they're playing against Houston. And all you need to know about Houston is they are the worst in the NFL against the run right now. And what I'm thinking, John, and correct me if I'm wrong, this Houston team, again, we mentioned they're tanking. I don't care what anybody says. They're going for Bryce Young or CJ Stroud as their quarterback. That's what's happening at this draft. So for me, I think Miami's going to absolutely destroy them. I think that the game script is going to be so positive for that of the running backs like Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert that we could see huge weeks from both of them. So for me, man, I also look at Jeff Wilson, and he's had back-to-back weeks now of double-digit points since he's come over to that of the Miami Dolphins. I foresee him continuing this over against that Houston defense. I love this pick with Jeff Wilson. I'm hitting it, baby.
Love it, man. Hit that boy. All right. My last hit it here, Frankie. I have to complete my boy band. Okay, this is the lead singer of the boy band group. This is the Justin Timberlake of my boy band group. It's DK Metcalf, man. We're firing him up. And I know it's not the picture with his, shirt off and all that. Cool picture, though. I love it. But DK Metcalf, I mean, listen, he's playing well. I mean, DK's back. And that's really on the back of Geno Smith and how the Seahawks have been playing. He's double-digit in weeks in the 6 of the last 8 weeks. He's getting in the end zone. He's clearly the number 1 target out there for Geno Smith. And you know what? They've got the Raiders this week at home. I'm sorry. When you're playing the Raiders, you start everybody. They're all going to have a great game. So DK Metcalf, I love you this week, brother. You're my lead singer of my boy band. All right. All right, let's look at our quit-its here, Frankie. Last week, we both quit. All right, you quit Mac Hollins. He had 8 points, and you quit DJ Moore. He had 4 points. I quit James Robinson. He had 1 point. And I quit Darrell Henderson. He had 1 point, and he also doesn't have a job. I wasn't predicting that, but that worked out kind of nice. All right, who's your first guy you're quitting this week, Frank?
So, guys, the first guy I'm quitting is going to be Brandon Cooks playing against Miami. The reason being is because he's had only single digits every week outside of week 4. Single digit fantasy points every week outside of week 4. That's crazy. Okay. With the talent that he has, it's absurd. Now you have a change at quarterback. They're going to Kyle Allen. Davis Mills is benched. They are just trying to get through this season. Brandon Cooks doesn't want to be there. Half the team doesn't want to be there. At this point, I don't know if the coach wants to be there, right? And so for me, I think that, again, they're playing against Miami. He's going to be matched up against Xavier Howard. It's not a great matchup there. I could see Nico Collins benefiting more than that of Brandon Cooks. And again, with the question marks at quarterback, it just makes me feel uneasy. So for me, I'm quitting Brandon Cooks this week.
All right, I'm quitting Deontay Foreman this week. He's playing against the Broncos. Listen, the Broncos defense is fantastic. I mean, that's the one bright spot on that team. They just shut everybody down. It's very, very difficult to run on the Broncos. He's had a rough go. He only had 12 touches last week. He only had 2 fantasy points last week at Baltimore, which is not a very scary defense. Chuba Hubbard is getting healthy and is back. It's going to cut into his usage. This is a guy that I said to sell high when he had those good games, because we knew these things were coming. We knew the schedule. We knew Chuba was going to be coming back, and it's just not a good team. It's not going to be very positive game scripts for the Carolina Panthers moving forward. I'm quitting Deontay Foreman this week. Who else you got, bro?
John, for my second one, I'm actually going to go to Cordero Patterson for Atlanta against Washington D. The reason being is because Washington D right now is ranked 6th overall against the run. That very, very strong. And by the way, there's rumblings that Chase Young could be back, which could only add even more issues for that of Atlanta. In addition, guys, that Washington defense, fun fact, the last 3 weeks, they are averaging 57 yards rushing against them. 57 yards averaging within the last 3 weeks. And without Cordero Patterson scoring that beautiful 103 kickoff return, it would have been a awful week for Cordero Patterson. So for me, I don't like this matchup. Washington's playing for a hell of a lot right now. Understand so is Atlanta, but there's something going on with the Commanders, with Taylor Heineke, with that defense. It's something special's happening, man. And it's weird and it's amazing. For that reason, I'm quitting Cordero Patterson.
I am quitting Deontay Johnson for wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm quitting 2 Deontays this week. Apparently, that's just what I don't like. They're playing at the Colts on Monday night. I will be at this game, so I hope he doesn't stick it right to me and say, prove it to me that he's right. Deontay Johnson's been struggling, man. He hasn't scored all year, not 1 touchdown this year. He hasn't had double-digit points since week 3. Normally you take Deontay Johnson and you buy on him because of the targets, but in the past 3 weeks, he hasn't had more than 5 targets. So he's just really struggling. I think the quarterback play plays into that. The offensive line plays into that. The team's just really struggling. Deontay Johnson, there are better days ahead for him. He plays Atlanta, Baltimore, Carolina, and Vegas to end the year. So I do like his schedule towards the end. He's a buy low candidate in my mind. He's going to get into the end zone. He's going to get more catches. But against this Colts defense in Indianapolis, I just don't like it. I'm quitting him completely. All right, man. Let's get to Flex Appeal, baby. Now let's see it. It's my favorite part every week, Frankie. You know what? I am thankful for watching you do the Flex Appeal dance every week. That's what I'm thankful for. All right, last week, Flex Appeal, we kicked some ass again, man.
Sure did.
Yeah, you called Joshua Palmer. He was on fire this week. It's nice to have your Flex Appeal guy on the fire segment. He had 29 points. You also had Scary Terry McLaurin at 8 points. I had Allen Robinson. I called the touchdown, and damn it came, man. 13 points out of Allen Robinson, and Gabe Davis had 9 points. Frankie, who's your first Flex Appeal guy this week?
John, I mentioned it. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, brother. I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers at Minnesota. Again, I mentioned he has 12 targets in the last 2 weeks, playing against a beaten up Minnesota secondary. And the other thing that I mentioned is I truly think that the Patriots are going to need to keep pace with that of the Minnesota Vikings. So with all of that being said, I think it's going to be a positive game script for that of Jacoby Myers. So for me, I'm locking in Jacoby Myers as my flex appeal for this week.
All right, I'm taking Christian Kirk. Sister Christian. Christian Kirk at home against the Ravens. Ravens have a very vulnerable pass defense, and Christian Kirk's been getting the work, man. He had a little lull in the middle of the season there where he was really struggling. The whole Jaguars offense was struggling. But Christian Kirk's been on fire lately. He's coming off a bye, and he's healthy. But the week before, he had 28 points and then 17 points before that. 10 targets, 7 targets, 9 targets, 12 targets. That's what you want to see out of a guy like Christian Kirk. He's getting the targets. 3 touchdowns in the past 3 weeks. I think they've got just a great connection, and they're figuring out where to get him open on the field. Fire up Christian Kirk and feel real good about it in your flex this week.
Love
Who
it,
you got,
man.
Frankie?
So, John, I'm going to go with Antonio Gibson as my second flex appeal versus Atlanta. Guys, Antonio Gibson is very, very quietly a top 16 running back this year in fantasy football. He has had double-digit fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 weeks. With McKissick being out for the year, we've really seen Gibson shine. And he's stepped in as the change of pace back. And what was interesting for me, John, is when Gibson lost this role to that of Brian Robinson, and while McKissick was still there, I thought he was going to be fairly irrelevant. When McKissick got hurt and Gibson stepped in as that change of pace, it feels very natural, it seems like, for Gibson to be that role rather than him being the bell cow back. So for me, man, I love this play. He's getting the receiving work as well as the groundwork, some groundwork. I think that this could be very, very interesting flex play this week against Atlanta.
I like it. You know what? I'm going to go right with his Eskimo brother there, Frankie. I'm going with Brian Robinson, the other running back here for the Washington Commanders. Like you said, they're at home versus the Falcons. Atlanta's rushing defense is atrocious. It's pitiful. You can run all over these guys. He hasn't had amazing weeks as of late. There needs to be a positive game script, which I think he's going to have against Atlanta. But he's had the attempts. He's getting the rushes, 13, 26 rushes, 15 rushes. Give any running back the opportunity to run the ball versus the Atlanta Falcons, and I think he's going to shine for you. I see him in double-digit points very easily this week. All right, brother, let's round things out here and let's cross.
We'll cross the streams.
Excuse me, Egon. You said crossing the streams was bad.
Cross the streams.
Cross the streams. Frankie, who we streaming this week, man?
All right, John. This week, we're looking at quarterback Ryan Tannehill versus that of Cincinnati. The reason being, John, is because what we have seen is Ryan Tannehill is playing some damn good football the last few weeks, and it is strictly being derived from that of Derrick Henry. And what I mean by that is everyone and their mother is focused on stopping Derrick Henry. With Treylon Burks back, Robert Woods healthy, and now they're starting to get Austin Hooper in the mix in the red zone, we're starting to see a very interesting game managing type of style of play from that of Tannehill, but it's producing and it's been going well. So guys, for you looking for a streaming option this week, I really, really do like this matchup, especially now that it was mentioned that Jamar Chase on the opposite end could be playing for Cincinnati, which means that they're going to be airing the ball out, which means that Tannehill will need to keep up. So I love the game script here as well, John.
That's beautiful.
All right, we're going to look at tight end here. I'm going to go with Firemouth here. We're going to go with Pat Freiermuth, right, at Indiana. So here's a fun fact. He leads the Steelers with a 30% target share the last 2 weeks. That's absurd. That's insane, guys. 30% target share from a tight end. I mean, that's Kelsey stuff, right? So I love this matchup against Indy. Indy, again, they have a lot of positive shit going on there. I really think that there's some good mojo. I think, though, that he's a really good second, third option to that of Kenny Pickett, the quarterback. I think there's really being a developing relationship between the two there. So I think he could be a nice streaming option this week. And then, John, lastly, for a defensive side, with all the shit going on with Justin Fields, that is that team. I'm going to go with the Jets defense versus that of Chicago. The Jets defense is for real. I really think there's something there. Their offense, Zach Wilson, I'm going to say Zach Wilson let him down. Okay, now that they're going to have Mike White, who the hell knows what he's going to do? Doesn't matter. If Chicago doesn't have Justin Fields against this defense, it's going to be brutal. So that's why I like Jets D against Chicago.
Great opportunity for takeaways, and that's what you want to look for. I don't really look for points against when I'm streaming a defense. I look for the opportunity for takeaways because that's where you're going to get your points. I love it, man. Great job this week. All right, I hope we helped everybody out. Thank you so much for listening. I want to give a special thanks to Anthony Sistone for music on the podcast, Liam Hickey for helping produce, Jesse Kelsey with helping us with social medias, and Cal Sprower Employee Recruitment Services for being our sponsor. Frankie, have a great freaking Thanksgiving, man. Are you ready? Am I going to see you this weekend? I'm hoping I'm going to see you. I'm in Cleveland.
So. Yeah. I hope so.
Let's get together, man.
I'm going to do everything I possibly can because I would love to smash some turkey with you, smash some bourbon, and watch some football, baby.
That sounds great. I love it, man. Let's have a wonderful week, everybody. Good luck to you. Get ready for your fantasy playoffs, and may the fantasy gods smile upon you.